Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bashir Fancy. You guys know we come to you fairly regularly on the Fancy That Conversation. And the face that's very familiar to you is Nick Brown here on the screen. And we've talked about, because both our backgrounds are Visa, but more importantly, it's a lot more than Visa. And so we've been examining some of the things as to what is going on in the payment world, because it's going to be needed if the countries are going to make progress and so forth. Anyway, that said, a couple of days ago, I posted a article on our website on LinkedIn about the Nigerian bank Kuda of microfinance. So if you look at mobile wallets, mobile payments, a lot of the other stuff that's going on, these guys have done some very interesting thing in terms of combining all the stuff. And so we're going to examine that. So let's kick it off here. And so Nick, you're very, first of all, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
You are very familiar with this situation. So why don't you lay the land and I'll come at it from 2 cents there.
Okay. Yes, what Kuda's done is really quite fascinating, because they're at the front end. They're having basically a mobile bank, so they call themselves the mobile first challenger bank. So it's mobile, it's smartphones, and what they've done though is that they've also integrated that with microfinance, and that is fascinating because there are a lot of huge microfinance organizations across Africa, and they're all independent of mobile money and the banks, and they're looking to integrate their systems. But what Kuda's done is they're offering it on the same platform, and their target audience right now is sort of like because it's mobile, smartphone based. It's the younger people that are at the middle affluence level that can afford a smartphone, but they've declared that they want to be a bank that can be for everybody. So they want to get to the poorest people. Now, obviously, that only happens when the internet gets to the poorest people, but they're going to be pushing for that. They're also working up as well, and looking to get a full-fledged banking license, and they're looking to be all across Africa as well. And that is a fascinating combination that can be duplicated everywhere. Whether they go everywhere or not, others can copy it. And they are a threat to the status quo across Africa. And that's really what this webinar is about, is to discuss that.
Right. Now, here's a couple of very interesting things. They do have the full license.
Oh, they have that? Okay.
They have it because they applied under microfinance. It's like we have credit unions in Canada, and I think they're also in US and UK and whatever. And they are part of the same system, which what allows them to do is to play in this big system. So they have that. So it's very interesting what you talk about. They've targeted the poor, as you quite rightly point out. They are challenging the traditional banks, no question about it, because the mobile wallets and mobile payments, people can go at it. Here's the other interesting thing. They didn't have to make a deal or be acquired by Visa or MasterCard or anybody else, right? Or another bank. They didn't even make that deal. They applied for their own license as a microfinance bank, and they got it, which means they're playing level playing field now. Their costs are a hell of a lot lower because what they're doing and the platform, the way they're approaching, this means the banks who have been crying for a long time, and I'm being polite when I'm saying crying, because every time they turn around and say, we can't do it because of the legacy system. And, you know, I'm sure I'm not the only one I'm speaking about, everybody out there. We've heard that word, actually abused, not thrown around, abused, the legacy system. Because if it's going to take us 30, 40 years to deal with the legacy system, you might as well close the doors, right? Because really, you can't then operate because the world, the speed of technology changes have been happening. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is the other mistake people have made is also they're using technology as the lead rather than what is the business, what are the problem we're trying to solve, and then use technology. So now what you talked about is very interesting because A, they're going to the poor, they're using the microfinance, as you quite rightly point out. This is even bigger than mobile wallets and mobile money and all sorts of things because it's a complete solution. So the question becomes, there's one other thing they said, by the way, if you have to take out the money, you can actually go to an ATM and withdraw money. Remember, that's what they are also allowing. So now this is a very interesting because if I'm Visa and I'm thinking long term, I'm saying, is my business only going to come from banks? No, banks have a problem. That's why in January conference we're talking about the future of banking, is that banks have not innovated. There's a comment on LinkedIn today, which is very valid, that too many words are being used, the right words, but do they mean anything? Do they actually walk the talk? And the answer is no. So the question becomes, is the little disruptive guys, and we've been talking about disruptive players also for a long time, but what does that mean? Well, I think in this coronavirus lockdown and what has happened and the world has changed, these guys now have the ability to do it because people are working from home. You are now doing groceries by ordering online, right? And picking up or somebody's delivering. So all the models are changing. So payment will play a critical role. You identified another very important thing about the telecoms and the internet. Is it freely available? And that's one of the challenges. It is available in some places, in others not. But that is also going to change. Why? The satellite is changing it. I know a government here announced a couple of days ago they were spending $1.7 billion to look at, put the fiber down. And I'm saying, well, they can't fix 6 feet of wire outside my house. Okay? It's 6 years. 6 years, because the cable has been cut under the ground. It took a long time to find out. And I had to kind of lead them in that direction because they were coming and changing. But my point is, why? Is it because these guys are bad? No, because the fact it involves municipalities, it involves licenses, it involves permission from this guy, they have to inspect this. And so there are too many players. And so where are you going to lay the fiber? Who's going to use it? Who's going to own it? Well, in this country, you've got Bell, Rogers, and Telus, you've got Verizon, AT&T, you've got, Vodafone, whatever companies in different parts of the world. So who's owning this? And then, how long is it going to take you? You can't lay those type of cables, cut across homes or whatever the heck you're going to do it in, 3 months or 6 months. So the question becomes, has this been thought through or has just been, boom, let's put it out there? Okay, fine. Why not the satellite technology, right? From telecom. So you start solve the problem. You don't do all this overnight, but the fact that they have done this, microfinance, as you've been involved with us, and I thought we can explore that. And the other thing they were attacked, and I think you also said that, is the cost, right? The cost now becomes a hell of a lot less. Okay, let's go there.
Yeah, this is where it's like having an integrated system. It's still a closed system, but having an integrated system by offering multiple services, namely the mobile money, mobile banking, mobile wallet in a way, front-end system, but integrating micro-lending into that means that there's no cost of integrating interoperability between systems. You don't have to do that because it's all in one place. And one of the things, and I think this is I think I sort of missed this on the initial one, is they're working up to the more affluent as well and the threat to the banks because they are connecting in with the Visa MasterCard rails. Those cards are not applicable to the poorest people just yet, but they are to the customers of the conventional banks. And so when you do that, you have access to all ATMs, but you also have access to all retailers that accept cards as well.
Right.
So they are bundling everything together without having branches everywhere. So they're looking at this and saying, this is the future of banking. We're going to create it. And I think they may be right. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't also have a part to play in it, but the only way that they can compete is to take all of it on themselves, which is problematic because they're not in the business of doing everything, or you connect all those systems together.
But I don't think it's problematic. I really don't believe that for a second. It's not problematic at all because somebody cut the path there before. It was not like millions of people there. Somebody cut the path. They're cutting the path. People will follow. I mean, if you look at the banking world or whatever, what is the difference really at the end of the day? If I've got my phone and I'm doing the banking, you're right about the internet and all that. But what is that the banks can do that this guy can't do? Now remember, they're not going to credit card. They're not offering credit card. They're going to debit card, right?
Yeah.
Which means they're smart. They're saying, we don't want to get into this thing about lending money. So let the banks do that and have defaults and charge 22 and 28% interest rates and, X number of people who pay that as a whole different model. And then we create a credit society, right? Which we have done, where people own thousands of dollars, right? And it's not necessarily a good thing because people may have different view on it, but nevertheless, when you go to debit, I mean, look at countries like in the Far East, China, India, Pakistan. What credit card was there before? They were all cash society. Even in Africa, what credit card was there?
You replace cash. Yeah, you replace cash with debit because it's one step.
Correct. So what is the bank's role here that they can do that they can't do that the banks do? Which part? Lending of the money? The mortgage?
Well, the idea, though, this is where it's interesting, is that they specifically are saying microfinance. They're not, the banks don't do microfinance.
Correct.
Now, this is what's interesting, is that you have these huge MFIs, microfinance institutions, that are really, really good at microfinance.
Right.
Like Axion and Vision Fund International are a couple that are across Africa. And there are plenty more as well.
Right.
And they don't have a mobile wallet front end.
Right.
They're in the business of doing microfinance, and they're very, very good at it. And by being good at it, they know how to lend to the right people the right way.
Right.
They've proven it over the years. And you go to them and say, okay, do a mobile wallet front end, and it's like, that's not our business. Whereas you go to, say, M-Pesa, that's got the front end, that's got the customer by offering financial services like account services. They don't do microfinance. That's not their business.
Right.
Whereas these guys are looking and saying, we want to do both. So how does everyone else compete? And it's not compete to keep them out of the market. It's to compete to be there with them. And the only way to do that is to start connecting everybody together. This is where it gets very interesting, because that's not an easy thing to do. This is our world. Bashir and I have both been involved in interoperability, is what we call it. And the big microfinance organizations I know for the last year or two have been looking to connect into mobile money. I think they're realizing that this was a lot more complex than they realized. And now all of a sudden they're going to be looking at this and going, we need to speed this up. So do we jump in with a questionable system where we're concerned about it and potential to go really badly? Or do we wait and allow these guys to start, and people cloning these guys, to start picking up the slack of integrating the two already?
So let's pick what you just said. You said some really important things there. You're absolutely right. There's a market with people affluent who's got a lot of money and whatever, and they're dealing with the banks and they couldn't be bothered with, no problem. This is not where these guys have attacked or gone, which is smart. Mm-hmm. They've gone to exactly through the microfinance to the small guys, right?
Yes.
To the guys who would not otherwise. But that's a pretty hefty population around the world, including in US. When you look at the unbanked, why is it unbanked? Because these guys are living from hand to mouth. They get their paycheck or get their salary. And now with this, if I go to a big company and saying, you can save a lot of money because issuance of check and other things is very costly. So microfinance, I go start in Nigeria, take it to Kenya, take it to all other countries, Ethiopia, here, there, start there, and you then start to roll it out in Asia Pacific and certainly in the West too. Here's what I would do. I would turn and go to the companies and saying, by the way, take your payroll when you've done it, credit to the account. Here's the file, just credit there. Don't issue checks that guy's got the money, you paid, and your cost is less, number one, right? So there, that part is done. And you're going to the lower end. They don't have to go to Walmarts of the world or whatever. Not because Walmart's the problem, but because Walmart, in fact, does cash the check and help them out for free and whatever. But I've got now the money. So done that part. Now, when it comes to the fact that now I got the money, I can spend it the way I want. Here's the second part that they haven't thought about. Although we're talking about microfinance, some of the projects that are going on right now that potentially some of the big guys might be asleep on this is that we talk about community banking. This becomes more than community banking, although it's being done at national level. Why? I got a project, I want to build a bridge. I want to do something in my area, right? Can I get community investment? Yes, $100, $300, whatever the local currency may be. And you create this because that little guy who looks at it says, I am willing to put the money in my area. And so people would do that. Now, I don't need the banks to fund anything. I don't need the World Bank or anybody else to come in and do things. You could actually do, it should be public-private partnership to do things. And so the government should step in and saying, okay, we're going to help because A, you're keeping the control of this and we can do this thing through microfinance. Now the ability for them to see what they're doing, there are two platforms ready to go. There are some may already been done, which could actually work with CUDA model side by side, right? To turn around and say, okay, hook it here because money can go in, money can go out. I don't need to worry about Wall Street and whatever because and you can actually see as another satellite system starting to build because people are saying we can't play in that game, right? Even if politics happen, things change, it's more of the same. So you look at it, and that's what people are feeling. And so you look at the thing and go, okay, when will I be able to play? And you can see around the world, there's a lot of agitation going on about the fact that we got no stake in the game here. And how do I get in? So you turn around and get these guys in. And as regards even the telecommunication, all that and the other, you start to work with the Elon Musk type of people who are saying, hey, I got a satellite up. You don't need to lay wires. I just gave you 6 countries switched to that recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the US lost out on because that's where they were going through. So there are other ramifications to this, which really means they've got to stop doing this, right? And start looking, hang on, I have ignored this young, what I think small guy, but he's not small guy. There's a big population. We've increased the have versus have nots. So if you really look at with the coronavirus and what's happened, you don't have to go far. Just look at the US and even Canada and a few other countries in the West. A lot of people are unemployed. Not all these guys, because you can play with numbers. I come from finance background. You can make numbers tell whatever story. The truth is that if you're creating a job back, they're not the same jobs. Okay, they are low-paying jobs. But a lot of people are unemployed. Now what happens? And they said, I can't remember the exact number, but X number of million people have now joined the ranks of the poor, right?
Yeah.
So because of all that, we are creating a problem so they can't play in this game. This type of microfinancing, and full marks to the guys in Nigeria and Kura and M-Pesas of the world in Kenya and other guys who have done it, to say, okay, create a local solution for the benefit of the local, by the local, with the local, and there's some of the comments their CEO made, which are very interesting. He said, yeah, we will deal with people as it suits our interest. Now, they made the deal with Visa and MasterCard. If I'm now, today, wind the clock back and I'm still at Visa and advising, I would turn around and say, step back. If you think that banks are the only future you have, you're asking for trouble, right? If those banks, they want to play, and not everybody is in the same place, to be fair. So the banks who are progressive and saying, we will do the right things so that we are helping the poor. I mean, I give you one simple example. You're talking about microfinance and the credit card borrowing and all that, right? And the mortgage here. That because the government worked with the people, they said, okay, you know what? We want you to help the public, right? So they can't pay the mortgage because they're out of job or they're in a tough situation, there's other problems. So the bank said, okay, we're going to defer it by 6 months. And everybody's very excited that look at how wonderful the banks have been, and they've done that. The bottom line is that the banks deferred it, didn't forgive it. They took all the interest and loaded it up on the back. So when you start to pay up, either your amortization becomes longer or you'll be paying more, whichever, right? But it doesn't matter. So how did the banks lose out? Because in their thing, they simply credited a receivable, right? They'll still book the same profit, no change there. And if there's any problem, if there's defaults, they can go out with the government, whatever. But the bottom line is...
Well, they couldn't continue doing it because then everyone would default and then they would collapse. So they did what they had to do, which is not a bad thing that they did. It was a good thing they actually did because no one could afford it. But it didn't get rid of the debt.
Well, you and I know the receivables at the bank.
Yeah.
On credit card, you know, that's where I came from. So we book the profits that people pay minimum 10% or whatever, right? The minimum payments, and we book the profits. What when it gets out of hand and they can't pay, never mind that 5%, they can't pay this at all, and the default, but not on a small scale because that continues to happen every day. On a wider and bigger scale, now what happens? And it is better to slowly move to the model that this is offering, right? And keep it going and keep it controlled so that you got the environment, this is the reason why I think microfinance and this type of concept is good. So we're not here to attack the banks in the model because it's worked for X number of years and we both were in there. The thing is,
well,
right, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like what they're doing is they're saying, let's offer this and this. Well, what's next? They're going to offer saving circles. They're going to offer peer-to-peer lending. They're going to offer community investing. Why? Because they're going to try things and they're going to see what works. And ultimately, whether it's CUDA or not, some of these new ideas are going to work and then other new ideas are going to work. And the problem really that I see, and I think this is what you're alluding to, is if you're sitting in this country or in Canada or in the West anywhere and thinking everything's going to continue on the way that it has been with very slow incremental changes, you're going to be blindsided one day.
Correct. And
when
not too far.
This massive new organization that's all across Africa comes charging in and offers 10 times more, 10 times better than what you've been doing because you've been moving at the old speed. The game has changed. The speed of the game has changed. And it's not happening here. And okay, fair enough if it isn't happening here. That's okay. Pay attention to what's happening elsewhere. And when you start seeing something that's working elsewhere, look to adopt it. Look to accommodate it. Look to partner with it. Look for something. Don't just close your eyes and pretend it's not happening. Because that's going to be, in 10 years, you're going to be gone if that's the case.
And I think you have said exactly the right thing, because what happens is it's happening elsewhere, it's not happening here. But remember, all these countries are made of people from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And they know their families and friends, and this is going on. Why the heck is not going on here? Who is to say that they can't start to work with that? I mean, I know people who are, when I was in another country, you know, on assignments and whatever, I didn't change my account. I was doing stuff from there. So
yes, because that's really good. You've got a really important point there. You've got people here know what's happening elsewhere.
Right.
Because of the internet, because of the type of structure of these companies, you can use them here.
Correct.
There's nothing stopping you. And the banks and everybody else and the authorities and the central banks are just not going to know. And all of a sudden they're going to wonder, well, what's going on here? You don't have the borders anymore when it comes, national borders when it comes to technology.
Right.
That's gone.
Exactly.
And people are going to see it and know it's there and going to start adopting it. And all of a sudden, you're going to be wondering, where are all my customers disappearing to?
Correct.
And you won't know. And this is what's happening.
Absolutely.
This is a time now where you cannot say, well, when it finally gets here. It can be here tomorrow.
Absolutely.
You don't even know.
And COVID has expedited all that.
It sped up everything.
It's sped up.
The movement that's been out there has got much faster. It was going to happen anyway.
Yes.
It's got much faster because, what was it? Hardship is the driver of innovation. I think someone else said it much better than that.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention, right?
There we go.
And
necessity comes from hardship.
Yes, it's a pain point. Absolutely.
Yes.
And the pain point is now a lot of people have gone to this level below. And here's the other interesting thing that the banks globally should be worried about is that more than half the transaction, if you look at Visa, right? If you look at in Canada, because we've got Interac and then there is debit, Visa debit. In US, it is Visa. In UK and so forth, almost half the transactions are debit, right? So what are we saying? We're saying these guys can cut through the microfinance and the Kudas of the world can cut right into half your revenues and half the business like this, because even if they didn't do anything, it just took that business, right? Because really, you're not giving them credit. They're going against their bank account. They're going against the bank account. This is a bank now, right? That's what they've changed. They're not a wallet issuer, a mobile money and all that. So can they do transfers to different parts of the world? They can do everything.
See, we've had several webinars where we've been warning the world about the threat of global mobile wallets like Alipay, WeChat Pay, Facebook's Calibra, though that's often under now WhatsApp payments, and others. These guys are offering even more.
A lot more.
You think they're a threat, or we've been talking about the threat of global mobile wallets. These get going, they offer even more. Now, what's interesting is these guys are going to be regulated because they have a presence in each country.
Right.
In the same way that global mobile wallets aren't going to be.
Right.
And can't if they don't choose to be. These guys offer way more. This has the potential to actually be the threat to the global mobile wallets.
It's a game changer.
And to everyone else, to be honest, as well.
Absolutely, it is a game changer.
Yes.
And I don't think people have realized, many have realized, and some haven't realized, or they don't want to, right?
Yes.
Because
I mean, I look at this, and they've been around they launched just over a year ago, and they already have 300,000 customers.
300,000.
I don't know if that's good or not. It sounds phenomenal to me.
Yeah, it's very good.
Imagine this, going to M-Pesa customers, for example, mobile money, and saying, hey, when you have the internet available to you, get a microloan from us to get a smartphone. But you have to get an account with us as well.
Right.
All of a sudden, that's the game. Micro loans to get smartphones, maybe get some micro insurance thrown in as well. And all of a sudden, talk about a huge leap forward for individuals.
Correct. Remember, their payroll is going there because you set it up. Payroll is going there. The government's providing the oversight because, as you said, they're regulated. So you don't have that hanky-panky. And suddenly, meaning they're not going to run away.
No, it's just a term I haven't heard for a long time.
Yeah.
We're not going to get that hanky-panky.
That's right. It's not Bitcoin, not running away and you're paying underground because your account was hacked. That type of thing. So there's security around it. There's a lot of different things, and you tie it to the mobile phones. And what it does, it's really, truly a game changer. And I thought this was a quick thing for us to introduce the topic today and saying, hey, this is going on.
Yes.
What I think we will do over the next couple of weeks, we can probably I can see if I can invite a couple of people, right? To create a panel with us to discuss, and we can talk to them question. But regardless, we can prepare more because we're coming as the announcement have just come out and all this thing, because we can now examine a lot more detail what we're talking about.
Yes.
And say, by the way, if you're a bank, we are fortunate in Canada that there's X number of banks, they're well regulated, and by and large, they're trusted entities, right? So that's good. That doesn't mean they need to fall asleep on this, because things are changing around them.
Yeah.
We got a couple of banks in Canada, which to their credit, they're also international. They're South America and all over the place. They would look at this and go, this is very interesting, right? And it's not a bad thing. You don't have to be the first guy out of the blocks, right? I've always said that. Don't have to be the first one. But you watch it very carefully, you're ready with this, and things that don't work, you adjust here. You try and now you go out there and you get the unbanked before, because I think it's no point, it's like the cybersecurity, how we handle, right? It's, for the lack of a better term, and somebody might get upset, but it doesn't matter, it's a fact. It's a joke. Why do I say that? Is because we react. We constantly react, we do this thing. Meanwhile, the bad guys have a 10-year plan. 10-year plan of exactly how they're going to commit fraud. And while we lack the training and skills and we're trying to do this, those guys are going. All those things need to change. But that I'm talking about the culture. I was not so much wanting to talk about cybersecurity, or I'm talking about the culture, that it can't happen to us, or no, we are very big. And I had put a thing here that there's no time to be rigid or to be arrogant. Right?
Yeah, those that end up getting blindsided, and their entire industry is gone because
Correct.
It's been replaced by the new players, and overnight they just end up being fossils.
Correct.
That's what normally happens with an industry. This is the first step in the conversation.
Correct.
Yes. So we will be continuing this, but it's like, if you don't pay attention, you're going to be surprised overnight. It's going to be the game changes, and we're warning you now, so you have time to actually do something about it. Not to stop them.
We're cautioning.
Don't stop them. You can't anyway. So the whole process of trying to stop them might delay it a bit, but it's not going to work. They're going to be there at some point, knocking on the door, and the best you can be is be ready.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're saying, and to park that at the end of the day, and then we'll get back to this one again very quickly, is that this didn't happen overnight. They were working on this for a while, right? So they got the thing ready. To go to the next level, and next level is not going to be problematic for these guys.
They already have 300,000 customers.
300,000. They're connected to the Visa rail. They're now got a banking license. They are regulated. All they're going to do is replicate it all over Africa, and then take it to Asia Pacific and other regions, including here. There is no reason why, because remember, the guys who've done it are actually based in UK. Right? It's interesting. They happen to be from there, and they did this. They raised $10 million to get this thing going, which means people are hungry for this. There are a lot of, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing. They just raised $10 million. Once they have a proven model of microfinance, of microlending, and getting repayments, there are a lot of people out there that have a lot of money to put into it. And here's a cheaper, faster, better, cooler microlending platform. I could have easily imagined that they could get $1 billion, saying, lend this.
They'll get.
Here's money to lend, not for other things. Here's money for you to lend to your customer base. Right. Holy mackerel. That's going to change things. $1 billion. And it'll just be handed to them.
Remember, trillions of dollars are sitting on side because all this chaos that's been going on. Yeah. And we've got Wall Street going this way, the real economy going that way, and they don't seem to be in sync at all. And it's just 6 companies, as they call it, FANG: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google.
I haven't heard that term before.
Yeah, it's FANG. FAANG. FANG.
Okay.
They're the guys driving the stock market, which is Facebook, Apple, Amazon. And we already know, in case of Facebook, they don't follow any of the rules anyway. So there are already movements here, there, and everywhere to do this. I think this is interesting. We need to examine closely. And we will do that. We'll get the right people.
Yeah. I mean, my overriding goal is that those guys are still around, but so is everyone else.
Right.
And at the moment, they're doing everything they can as just solid good business of let's take this market, let's take this market.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
the long run, though, that's not good.
Exactly. And Nick, we're not here today to either knock
Yeah.
the banks or anybody where, yeah, we may be coming across a little harsh or hard, is because saying, wake up, guys. If you want to play in this game, it's like what we've done with blockchain. They put millions of dollars in blockchain. Or what does blockchain mean? Are you trying to tell me blockchain can't be compromised? Yes, it can be. It's like anything else. Is how you design, how you develop it, how you implement it, all those things, and you can still be compromised because depending on how you do. So we need to take a step back and saying, hey, hang on, don't go run after shiny objects, because we seem to be using some fantastic jargons like we can't call outsourcing, we call it cloud. And I'll let you go with a smile here, and then we'll continue. You know what cloud stands for? CLOUD.
Yeah.
Can't locate our user data. Right? Because nobody knows where the data is really stored. What country?
But wherever it is,
and what rules?
Company has it, owns it.
Yeah, and under what rules, right?
Yes.
So which country? Data could be Vietnam, could be somewhere else.
It could be anywhere.
It could be anywhere, and
it's not yours anymore.
It's a big problem, exactly. So we run around without thinking about it as to whose laws apply if there's trouble tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Nick, fantastic. We will set up a thing in the next 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
As we've done a lot more groundwork and we have reached out to some of these guys, and hopefully they can come and present, because I think if we can help people here to rethink.
Yes.
We're here not to screw the business, we're here to help them. But sometimes you have to light the fire to get them to wake up.
Yeah, well, I mean, competing takes time.
Yeah.
If they turn up, as I made this comment with the mobile wallets, the barbarians are heading towards the gate. You better have a gate when they get there.
Yeah.
Like the whole barbarians at the gate phrase. Like if you don't have a gate, you're done.
You're talking about Outlander.
Okay.
Have you seen the series? Good series. But I'll come back to Nick. Thank you very much for doing that. Really appreciate that, and I look forward to having the next session.
All right. Thank you, Bashir. So do I.